Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up in our news tonight. Big promises on rally stages just days ahead of the general election. The Coalition of Independents says that it's time for change. On the Record with host Jerome Sawyer goes inside PMH, past its breaking point. And a look at how the COVID-19 pandemic is continuing to impact the judicial system. Welcome to our News Weekend and thanks for joining us. I'm Georgia Bain. It's Sunday, September 12th. Topping news tonight. Tax breaks and concessions for first-time homeowners among campaign pledges made by Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis and the Free National Movement just days before the 2021 general election. The Bahamas can expect for political campaigns to ramp up in high gear as voters prepare to head to cast their votes on Thursday.
Even first-time homeowners constructing an owner-occupied dwelling less than $300,000, no taxes, no duty, all material free, furnishing free, fridge free, stove free, microwave free. Oh my God.
The concessions will also apply to those looking to build on private land as well as those who have applied for government land such as the Prospect Bridge development.
This applies whether you intend to build on your private land or on government land you received or purchased. We will extend the concessions now available to government land, communities, and developments to private land for home owner-occupied dwellings valued less than $300,000. There will be, as I've said, no duties on building materials.
These concessions and tax breaks will lead to a construction boom, providing jobs for hundreds, according to Minnis.
For all home construction, there will also be no VAT on building materials. No VAT on the value of the construction contract. FNM, this will benefit many potential homeowners. This will help to create a construction boom.
The Coalition of Independents also holding a drive-in rally last evening at the Tom the Bird Park following the party's motorcade. Party leader Lincoln Bain petitioned for discouraged voters to give a new party a chance.
You are here because you are tired.
Yeah.
I am here because I am tired.
Oh yeah.
Like many of you, I was ready to walk away and leave this country behind. Because the country just doesn't work for us. It works for everyone else, but not us. And there is no hope with the PLP and FNM. It's going to be more of the same. But we decided, all of us on the stage, decided to give it one more try.
Despite rainy conditions, party supporters lined the stage. Bain says on election day, voters must send a clear message to other political parties that it's time for change.
This is ours.
That's right. That's ours.
And no one is going to give you your freedom. You have to take it.
You gotta take it. Oh yeah.
And these old liars are messing up the pride. They are messing up this country.
That's right.
And old lions don't go away until the young lions shoot them up.
Well, former Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands is condemning actions by political parties who some say acted carelessly during campaign season. Our Bethany McDermott reports.
Days ahead of the general election, former Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands admitted that all political parties have acted irresponsibly during the campaign season.
Across the board, I believe that we have thrown caution to the wind, and that's FNM, PLP, and all of the other parties. We have all acted at some point in time less than ideally with regards to COVID safety.
Healthcare professionals have condemned campaigning activities and the decision to hold an election during the pandemic. In recent weeks, COVID-19 hospitalizations have hit record numbers. Sands said he shares the opinion of other health professionals who warn that COVID numbers could spike as a result of election campaigning.
The number of people required to fight COVID is diminishing, and yet COVID is raging on. We don't know exactly where this thing is headed, but it doesn't look very good right now.
As the FNM's candidate for Elizabeth, Sands said he has to campaign, but stressed the need to be responsible.
It is necessary for me to make my case to the people of Elizabeth. And so at this point, it would be unreasonable as a candidate to not campaign. What you need to do is to do it safely, to ensure that anybody associated with you is acting responsibly, and that you are not a part of a super spreader team. That's as good as you can do.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
From the public hospital's morgue to its records department, RTV and On the Record went inside Princess Margaret Hospital and the crumbling healthcare facilities. Show host Jerome Sawyer and cameraman Turan Knowles witnessed it all firsthand.
There's a lot of people in our department who refuses to go inside those areas. Right now, A&E has at least, I think yesterday, if I remember correctly, 40 patients, all on 15 liters, and that's the highest you can go when you're using regular oxygen directly from the tank. And a couple mornings, we come back here, the room is empty. There's no oxygen tank. And I say it's very, very scary. You get the call saying that they need oxygen and you have nothing to come and bring to them. If none of these things are in place, the doctors can't work.
Biomedical foreman Kenneth McPhee paints a scary picture of the situation at PMH, where there is insufficient oxygen supply to meet the growing demand of COVID-19 patients. The pandemic has also put a strain on areas of the hospital that ensure the upkeep of the facility. According to this laundress, the department is in a dire situation.
Number one is heat. That's our number one problem. Then we have machines that don't work or breaking down all the time. We've been without washers for a lot of years. The folder we have, that gone. We're supposed to be getting one. We have trolleys with no wheel. The exhaust, noisy. We have a whole heap of issues.
Another area hard hit by the number of deaths due to the COVID-19 pandemic is the morgue. A look inside shows what staff deal with on a daily basis.
In all of those spaces, it's even more compact than this. All of the floor space is taken up by trolleys, which again have 2 persons on a trolley and 2 persons on a shelf. So we're full to capacity. And this is what we deal with on a daily basis.
But there is hope on the horizon. On the inside of the hospital, construction workers are feverishly trying to complete upgrades on several wards, but that process is also being challenged due to COVID.
Here it is, you have on the outside, people need health care. We're doing the construction rigorously, and we're trying to get it done in an appropriate time. But with COVID, the challenges are there.
Watch the full episode of On the Record following this newscast. With Health Minister Renward Wells indicating that the Bahamas will follow the United States' model, allowing quarantined people to vote on Election Day, Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Davis says it's only fair that everyone on the register be allowed to vote.
The law says that if I'm on the register, I'm entitled to vote. That's a shall. My right to vote is for me to decide whether I go or not. So whether they may be able to vote is not a question that he ought to be even putting out there. Everyone, every Bahamian citizen who has registered to vote is entitled to vote.
This comes following weeks of uncertainty over whether quarantined voters would be allowed to vote or not. Wells said that health officials have recommended that those in quarantine not be allowed to come out and vote. The Bahamas is in the midst of its worst surge of COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. Davis says when it comes to a person's right to vote, it should never be taken away.
The only question there is whether that person would wish to turn up to vote. Now, it is their choice whether they exercise that right or not. And that right cannot be taken away or denied by some decision made elsewhere. It has to be the decision of the voter.
Well, despite a worsening backlog of cases brought on by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Chief Justice Sir Brian Moree says the judiciary will be ready to hear election court matters if petitions are filed. Our Jasmine Brown reports.
If election petitions are filed, the courts are in a position to deal with them in a timely manner.
The Chief Justice comments come as threats of legal action continue to mount over issues associated with the 2021 general election. It also comes as many, including Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Brave Davis, have questioned the state of the voter register. The Parliamentary Elections Amendment Bill 2020, which was passed in Parliament last December, established a permanent voters register. It effectively abolished the 5-year register, making way for the continuous register of voters. Sir Brian says plans are already in the works just in case election matters end up before the courts.
We are obviously looking at some contingency plans, and I would reassure the Bahamian public that the judiciary would be ready to deal with any election petitions that may arise out of the election.
Election court regulations aim to protect the identities of the people who cast the protested votes, but allow candidates or their representatives to question voters and state their case in the courts. Votes that are determined to be legally cast will be counted toward the result. Sir Brian says the only thing that may be different this time, if there is an election court, is the fact that they may happen online due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, the election court is comprised of 2 judges, which are appointed by the Chief Justice. Those judges constitute a special court. The proceedings are obviously different than the average civil proceedings, but the process itself is not so different. In other words, there have to be filings, which would take place in the normal way, which is the primary responsibility of the lawyers, and then there have to be hearings. Now, whether we conduct these hearings in person or whether we do them remotely is something that the judges would canvass with the lawyers at the time.
The last matter heard in an election court was in 2010, after the Progressive Liberal Party asked the election court to decide on 5 protested votes cast for Ryan Pinder in the Elizabeth by-election. Pinder needed 3 votes to put him ahead of the FNM's candidate Dwayne Sands. Reporting for R News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, still to come on R News Weekend, how the pandemic continues to impact the court system, concerns over the state of Ragged Island, and appeals are made for seniors to get vaccinated. That's coming up when R News Weekend returns.
The Great True True Bahamian Treasure Hunt is here, where you can win great vacation prize packages to hotels throughout the Bahamas. Watch Our TV on weeknights between 6 and 11 p.m. for your 10 True True Bahamian clues. Take note of your answers and clues. You never know, you might see the same clue twice. Follow Our TV Originals on Facebook to submit your correct answers before 11 a.m. every Saturday. Watch Our News Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. to see if you are the weekly winner. If you didn't win, watch for clues next week because the contest runs all summer long. Go to Our TV Originals Facebook page for more information and contest details.
The most recent wave of COVID-19 is impacting more than just the country's healthcare system. It's also putting a strain on the courts, according to Chief Justice Sir Brian Moree.
This latest surge has meant that we've actually had to take a step backwards in certain areas, particularly with regard to the magistrates' courts. And we've had to delay the implementation of certain other initiatives.
Days after the first case of COVID-19 was confirmed in the Bahamas in March 2020, the CJ implemented multiple measures as a part of the judiciary's COVID-19 mitigation protocol, including the reduction of the use of court buildings, enhanced cleanups, social distancing where possible, and nearly a 10-month suspension on jury trials. Sir Brian says it's been a work in progress. Exhumers and Ragged Island MP Chester Cooper crying shame on Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis for his failure to acknowledge the anniversary of Hurricane Irma, which devastated Ragged Island back in 2017.
But I hope he goes to Ragged Island too, so he can be reminded how little he has done for Ragged Island. The 4th anniversary of Irma's devastation was yesterday. Still no nurse, still no school, still no clinic, no airport terminal or restrooms, no police.
Cooper says while many of the plans to rebuild the island have yet to come to fruition, the Prime Minister doesn't seem concerned.
The solar plant he bragged about on 60 Minutes more than 60 weeks ago still has not been connected. Still no green city. Yet he says he loved the family islands. But he fails us every chance he gets.
Cooper said it's time for officials to answer questions surrounding funds donated to help rebuild that island.
Ask them for the audited reports of the $43 million they claimed that the Disaster Recovery Authority has spent. Go ask them what happened to the Dorian donations. Go ask them what happened to the Irma donations, and why Mr. Monroe and Mr. Wilson and others in Duncantown still ain't get no help from NEMA.
When our news weekend comes back from the break, a former MP throws support behind vaccine mandates. But first, the high cost of caring for the elderly during the pandemic. The details when our news returns.
The Great True True Bahamian Treasure Hunt is here, where you can win great vacation prize packages to hotels throughout the Bahamas. Watch our TV on weeknights between 6 and 11 p.m. for your 10 True True Bahamian clues. Take note of your answers and clues. You never know, you might see the same clue twice. Follow our TV originals on Facebook to submit your correct answers before 11 a.m. every Saturday. Watch our news Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. to see if you are the weekly winner. If you didn't win, watch for clues next week because the contest runs all summer long. Go to our TV originals Facebook page for more information and contest details.
You're watching our news weekend. Welcome back. A senior citizens' home is tonight pleading with the families of its residents to get them vaccinated. Our Jillian Gray has that.
It's a scary situation for Unity House founder Janet Smith Butler, who says the more deadly surge of COVID-19 raises concerns about the welfare of her vulnerable guests. She's now asking family members to come and get their relatives vaccinated.
It is frightening because nobody thinks this COVID thing, taking it so seriously.
In the last few weeks, Butler says she's attended several funerals of friends and doesn't want the same fate to befall her residents. While some are afraid of a COVID vaccine because of misinformation, Smith Butler says there are some who are suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's, and other incapacitating diseases, and it's the family members who need to give the okay for the jab. While that may sound like an easy task, Smith Butler says some family members avoid her calls because they think she's asking for money.
So I'm not calling you all the time for money, because if you don't pay, that's between you and God. I don't leave that alone. But I want you all to come and carry you all family members to come and get these shots.
Health officials said they'd accommodate a site visit to vaccinate all residents if family members agree, according to Smith Butler. They've taken stringent sanitization measures to keep people safe, and the home is closed to visitations. Staff and residents receive a rapid antigen test weekly. After 40 years of service, Smith Butler says she's at her breaking point due to the high cost of caring for the 17 residents with little donations.
Sometimes these staff work just like the hospital shift. So they're burnt out. They're burnt out. I owe them back pay. And when the government do give a grant, I get my grant at certain time of the year, at the end of the year. So I can only do with what I can do. But I'm asking the family members, please, I don't have, because if Princess Margaret had somewhere to put these, honestly, I would just put these all out. Because I've reached to that point for 40 years.
Now, Butler says she's appealing to anyone who can donate cleaning supplies, medical supplies, or even food to contact her at 323-6128. Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
With triple-digit COVID-19 cases in the past few weeks, former DNA leader Branville McCartney is calling on the next government to make vaccines mandatory to help the country to get out of the emergency phase of the pandemic.
Perhaps the next administration or whoever comes in, they can consider making it mandatory within their first year, because it has overall good for the country.
The former F&M cabinet minister joined many non-partisan voices noting that the COVID-19 vaccine is a way out of the pandemic.
It could almost be looked at as a national security concern. persons not being vaccinated being very much of a risk for themselves and also to others.
McCartney added that he is also involved in the medical industry as well. He says many people complain that they don't know what's in the vaccine, but he thinks that those people aren't aware of a lot of things that go into their bodies.
And every drug you take has side effects, you know. As a matter of fact, you take drugs that you don't even know what's in it. When you're sick, the doctor will prescribe a drug to you. You go to the pharmacy, they fill it, you don't know what's in it. But those drugs are there to save your life or to help whatever ailment that you have. The vaccine is the same way. The vaccine saves lives.
Well, still to come on our News Weekend, a look at some of the top quotes of the week. Stay with us.
The Great True True Bahamian Treasure Hunt is here, where you can win great vacation prize packages to hotels throughout the Bahamas. Watch Our TV on weeknights between 6 and 11 p.m. for your 10 True True Bahamian clues. Take note of your answers and clues. You never know, you might see the same clue twice. Follow Our TV Originals on Facebook to submit your correct answers before 11 a.m. every Saturday. Watch Our News Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. to see if you are the weekly winner. If you didn't win, watch for clues next week because the contest runs all summer long. Go to Our TV Originals Facebook page for more information and contest details.
Welcome back to Our News Weekend. It's time for us to take a look at some of the most memorable quotes and moments in news this week. And as voters headed to the advanced polls, there was no shortage. This first quote comes from former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham, who left the advanced polls upset after a mix-up at the polling station.
I voted because my name is on the register to vote today.
It's not.
Even though I have this from the Parliamentary Registration Department, myself and my wife. I've been to 2 polling divisions so far. My name is not there.
And this quote comes from former Prime Minister Perry Christie, who called Dr. Hubert Minnis's decision to call a snap election disastrous.
It is really a disastrous decision to do that. But under our Constitution, he has the right to call it when he thinks it's best for him. And he thought it was best for him. The people of the Bahamas, again, will respond, and the results will say whether or not they approve of what he's done.
And the quote of the week comes from this group of seniors over in Grand Bahama. They were determined to cast their vote despite inclement weather.
We are so happy, and we will not allow no devil and no government to take away our rights. And we are here this morning to mark the X to the candidate of our choice.
How Dr. Minnis done bring us this far through this. I feel like we should depend on him now to take us a little bit further, because somebody else get ahead now, they'll have to start completely over.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for Our News Weekend. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Georgie O'Bain, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.